Well, hey there, and good afternoon. So, all week long, we've been talking about making good care choices and personalized care plans for your person, and when it might be time to move your person out of your home and into another home, whether that is an assisted living, memory care unit, senior housing, or maybe it's moving your person from their home into your home. And we've talked about those kind of things, caregiver burnout, touched lightly on that, if your person is unsafe at home. And over the past couple of days, I've had the question come back over and over again. What do you do if your loved one with dementia doesn't want to move out of their home? And it's going to depend, right? It's going to depend on whether your person is incapacitated, meaning they no longer have the right to make their own decisions. Maybe you're living with them, so maybe you're living with them in their home, or whether they're incapable but haven't been determined to be incapacitated, meaning you might be their DPOA, but the person, like on paper, but you're not technically and legally their person because they're still capable of making their own decisions. So the situation is going to look different for everyone, but I'm going to talk from the perspective of the last couple of people who've asked me this question. So it kind of sounds like their person is still living at home. They still might be slightly independent on some things, but not really reliable and trustworthy to get everything done. So we're going to talk from that perspective today. So what can you do if your person with dementia who is starting to get to the point where they can no longer live alone, but they don't want to go move someplace else? So a couple of different things that I've tried with patients and their family members here is I've had open communication with them. You're just going to sit across from your person, you're going to start the conversation calmly, and you're going to have honest conversation about why a move is necessary and kind of keep track of those things, not to point fingers, but more to bring back to their attention about the things that they've done or did that were super concerning. Like, well, Dad, you left the stove on and you left and went on a walk with Fido and you came back and the stove was still on. Or, Mom, you haven't taken your pills for, 2 weeks, and I looked at your pill box to fill it this week and it was still full of pills. So maybe it would be better if you went to an alternative living environment. Just make sure that you're emphasizing that this change is to improve their quality of life, because otherwise it might look like you're punishing them for something that they're doing. And you don't want to make it look like a punishment. We're not punishing our parent or our loved one for the things that they've done. We want to make sure that it's more about the quality of life that they're going to be living. So, Dad, you left the stove on, and that you were really lucky that you came back to the house and it was still there. So we want to put you into a place where it's a little bit safer, where people can check and make sure you're not leaving on the stove. Make sure that you're including their preferences. If you know your person well enough because you've been a caregiver or you've been involved with them for a very long time, that should be pretty easy. If you're a long distance caregiver who was alerted by maybe a neighbor or something that your parent was declining or your loved one was declining, that might be a little bit harder. But I would encourage you to ask about their preferences and what they would like out of a new living situation. You can start that conversation by saying, I understand that you don't want to move, but if you had to move, what are some of the things that you don't want to live without? Or what are some of the things that you would make it more fun or more feasible for you to go live at, X facility? And write those things down so that when you're going through the directory, or you're going through Google and you're looking at all of the assisted livings in the area, you can kind of use that checklist and determine what they offer and what your person's preferences are. Make sure that you're focusing on the benefits. highlight, that there's safety and support, explain the advantage of having a professional caregiver who's there around the clock, staff that can help. Dad, remember the last time that you fell out of bed? You laid there for 3 hours and you had, big bruising down your side and you couldn't call the ambulance and you left your life alert on the bedstand, which is where it is most of the time. So just emphasize that, there's professional care available around the clock that can help prevent accidents and provide immediate assistance if needed. You can also discuss the social interaction. We just, like I said yesterday, we all just came off of this time where we were all secluded into our own homes and we didn't have a whole lot of social interaction with people. So as the social aspects were lacking, depression came into play. We saw more elderly people out there who became depressed due to the lack of social interaction. So talk to them about the social opportunities that are available in assisted living or memory care communities. The activities, the event, the chance to make new friends. If they're living in their home and they can't drive and they're depending on you, but you have work and you have your kids or you have other things that you're doing and you can't take them around to different places, well, then maybe being in a facility where there's lots of activities, music, and events that come to the facility would be something that would make your person very happy. So if they're still really obstinate and they don't want to move, it might be time to involve a healthcare professional. Sometimes hearing this recommendation from a doctor, a nurse practitioner, a social worker, that can make a significant impact on them. They can explain the medical benefits and why it's necessary for them to move. And this generation takes everything that their PCP says to heart. If the doctor says take your blood pressure pills 2 times a day, generally they do that, and if they can remember, generally they're going to do that and they're going to do it without asking any questions. If you're fortunate enough to have a geriatric care manager in your area, we don't have that here that I know of, but those professionals can provide guidance and support and even make some recommendations on different types of care units and make that transition a lot smoother. And they can also help mitigate the discussion between your PCP and your person with dementia so that you're there, but you're not the one delivering that information. If you don't have, or your loved one doesn't have a relationship with a PCP, maybe start with respite care. Consider introducing the idea of like short stays or respite care to help your loved one get used to that environment, meet the people that are there. And that can kind of help make that transition a little less overwhelming if you do that. Some insurances, if you flip your card over, call the number on the back. Some insurances even actually offer respite care where they will pay a certain amount per day for your person to go stay in a transitional care unit so that you as the caregiver can get that respite that you need. And then just make sure that you're setting up a familiar place when you move your person into someplace. Maybe take their favorite furniture, their favorite, lounger, so that they can have that in place. Make sure you're including a lot of pictures and a lot of personal belongings so that the place that you're taking them to feels more like home. And then you can expect that it's going to take about 2 to 3 weeks for someone moving from point A to point B, whatever your point B is going to be, about 2 weeks to become accustomed to that environment. So you can expect lots of phone calls, lots of acting out. Why did you leave me here? And again, I spoke about this a couple of weeks ago. I said there's that feeling of guilt and there's that feeling of relief because you know that you've got some end in sight. And both of those feelings are 100% normal. But sometimes people say, but Laura, what am I going to do if my loved one absolutely refuses and they're still their own person and I can't get them to move? What am I going to do? Pull them out of their house and put them in a police car or put them in an ambulance and drag them? No, You're not going to do that. But what you can do, like I said, is consult with their healthcare professional. Make sure that you give that healthcare professional a little bit of heads up. Maybe write a letter and let them know all of the things that you've noticed that your loved one isn't doing. Might be not taking their medications. They might be wandering it at a safety risk. They're not feeding their pet. They're leaving the stove on. They've gotten in a couple car accidents. There's lots of things that you could document to kind of give their healthcare professional a little bit of a heads up. And then that, geriatric case manager, that geriatric specialist, or people like myself who do in-home care, they can introduce the idea. And of course, then they can be mad at us and they don't have to be mad at you for making that recommendation. If that doesn't work, then you might need to consider legal options. If it becomes super critical, like your loved one is definitely in harm's way, then you might need to consider the legal route, which might mean exploring options such as guardianship or conservatorship over your person. And then the legal side of things will allow you to become the guardian or the conservator for your person, so that you're the one that's making those choices for your person and not your person making the choices for themselves, if that makes sense. So if your person still won't move and you can't, guardianship or conservatorship is going to take a little bit of time, you might want to look at hiring some in-home care help. If a move isn't immediately possible, you absolutely can't convince your person, you might want to consider hiring like a home health care service to assist with activities of daily living, the showering, the bathing, the med reminders. If your person happens to be a hoarder, I've seen that a lot, they can come in and kind of at least tidy up things, but definitely never throw away things until your person is out of the house, because that's just going to set you up for being blamed for stealing or taking their things, or them calling the police, and that's just never a good situation. You can also look at places like care.com or Seniors Taking Care of Seniors. Sometimes they have people who were previously caregivers who would love to come and help you, give you some respite in managing your person when you have things that you need to do until you can find that place to stay. And then, like I said, you can create a transition care plan with your person. If your person is still of sound mind and they're not so far, advanced in their stages of dementia, and they can have reasonable conversation with you, you can start working on a transition care plan that says, okay, we know that you need to move for your safety, but what we need to do first is we need to start picking out a place to go. And you take them there and show them the place and maybe have lunch. I think that's a wonderful idea. Most facilities will allow you to have lunch with your person and then get to meet some of the staff and some of the other residents. So take them during lunchtime. That way it gives you a great idea whether the meals are going to be satisfactory to your person or not. And then they can converse with other people. So once you've done that, then you're looking at like, okay, well, these are the room choices. Which of these 2 or 3 styles of room do you like best? Okay, now we've picked out our room, we've picked out our facility. Now we need to go home and decide which furniture and which pictures and which items do you want to take with you to make you most comfortable? And then they pick out those few items. So you're going down the list, and it's not so startling when you're jumping in and you're saying, okay, it's time, you've got to move today, or you've got to move yesterday, or we're moving you at the end of the week. So you slowly take them through this transition about why it's a better idea. And every time you go to that facility, you take your person. So if you're going to make your payment, you take your person with you, so that it's a calm and smooth transition, as opposed to that startling one. I think by focusing on, number one, their safety, how much you love them, how much you care for them, but that you're doing this out of their best interest and that you really mean to do well for them. Are they still going to be mad at you? Probably so. Are you going to still deal with guilt? More than likely, yes. Are you going to have a sense of relief? Probably not until the end when they're actually moved in. And then, just like I said, it's going to take them about 2 weeks to get that rooming in period, but it's probably going to take you a whole lot longer to overcome the guilt, to overcome the anger that your person is directing at you. And you need to find a support group. There are plenty of really great support groups out there that I've seen where people kind of come together and say, what did you do during this transition? So there's lots of people out there to support you. If you didn't see my previous post on items that you should consider when moving your person, I can link that below. And I do have a checklist that you can kind of go through when you're moving your person into an assisted living. And if you'd like that checklist, if you just comment below the word checklist, I will make sure to get that over to you. Otherwise, have a happy and safe 4th. If you're taking your person out, a few things to remember. Number 1, if your person is a veteran, just make sure that you're protecting those ears from those loud noises that might be startling. Those fireworks going off, those M80s might scare them, and that might cause a little bit of trauma. And number 2, if it happens to be hot in your area, make sure that you're hydrating your person, because they won't tell you that they're thirsty, because they don't need to drink as much as we do, and they're not going to be profusely sweating like we do when we're outside in the hot heat. So just make sure you're giving them their red glass with lots of fluids, and have a happy 4th of July. We'll see you next week.